Time.
Can we go live? Can we?
We are
Can
now
we?
live. Oh man. Hi everyone. Welcome to the Unready room. As usual, I just glance at the clock and go, "Oh, it's supposed to be live and I haven't hit live, but now we're live." So, yeah, living up to our name once again. I'm Dan Gunther. This is Brandi Jackola. Brandi, I've missed you like a Cardassian Mrs. Cake.
you know, I have so many things I could say back to them, but they're all spoilers.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about with this episode. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. Curious to get the thoughts of everyone in the comments today. Speaking of which, welcome everyone who's joined us live. Very happy to have you all here. And of course, as always, welcome to everyone who's watching this later. We're happy to have you here as well. So yeah. Brandi, what did you think of All
Yeah.
In?
I thought it was a really weird episode to stick in the middle of the season.
A little bit. Yeah, it's an odd one. Definitely an interesting one. Like I said, we have lots to talk about. There's some things in this episode that I loved so
Agree.
much. There are some
Agree.
things in this episode I wasn't the biggest fan of, but that's just me. That's just yeah. But yeah, we have lots to talk about, I think. So
I would be willing to bet we're going to agree on most, if not all, things that you like and didn't like.
I feel like we're similar in outlooks in these respects for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And the things that I liked, I really liked.
Yes.
And the things that I disliked, I only kind of disliked. So on
Yeah,
the whole,
it wasn't going to make me rage quit anything,
oh
It's
no,
just,
not even close.
yeah, not even remotely.
All right. Well, what do you say we jump into it? And we'll get to the shenanigans on the karma barge. Which I love that, by the way.
That's karma barge. Those are two things that shouldn't really go together, should they?
I love Dewoshikun. Karma barge? Burnham just like, just don't.
Yeah. It's just like,
um, yeah. But before
yeah.
we get there, we get basically immediately off the heels of the previous episode, which is interesting because, of course, we had a big, huge break, but this
Mhm.
takes place mere moments later. And the first thing I want to say that I loved about this episode is it just carried that kinetic energy from the end of that episode right into the start of this one. Like it was
Yes.
that same energy was going on. And that whole scene at the beginning with Vance, Burnham, and the president, I loved everything about that because Vance is, upset, of course, that this has happened and wondering how it happened. And then like the floor dropping out from under him when he's told it's his command codes that allowed it to happen. And then the president coming in right at that moment, not looking happy at all. And the questions she asks to Vance and Burnham, I think were completely fair. And yeah, I'm right there with her.
Yeah. Yeah. The Chronicles of Rillick continue. I know that was something.
Oh, I've never heard that, and that is amazing.
Dave came up with that. I owe that all to Dave. He just immediately started calling it the Chronicles of Rillick every time we had
Bravo.
her in an episode. So yeah, she is completely justified in her anger and disappointment. Because
Mm-hmm.
I keep bumping my table. Sorry. Yeah, I would be absolutely furious, especially when she looks at Michael and it's like, how could this happen? And then how could you not know this was going to happen? And she directs that mostly at Michael, which
Mm-hmm.
that's a fair question. That's a
Yeah,
fair question.
definitely. And I found it interesting too that we have the kind of two sides of this because
Mm,
um uh oh my goodness. Tarka is Vance's guy, right? Like
mhm.
Vance brought him into the fold, as he said, and now they're all in danger because of him. And Burnham, of course, is feeling that personal responsibility as well, because
Yeah.
effectively she brought Book into the fold, as it were, as well. And both of them have committed a pretty big betrayal here and made both of them look really bad. And I know that's not the main concern, that they look bad, but they definitely take on some of that responsibility. And I feel that for sure.
Yeah, and Rillick, unfortunately, is the one who's got to mitigate all the PR about it. So she's the one who's got to face the fire, and so it's no wonder she's upset, because they just had this big meeting, and Burnham sold this whole first contact thing, and then this happens right after that. And how is she going to spin that? She can't spin it. So the only hope is to catch them before they screw up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get in dialogue. Thank you, Patrick. The mention of the Eisenberg class. That was nice. Just like getting that in there into actual dialogue. Very, very cool. Now I want to hear the USS Nog in dialogue. Like I want to hear that. That's cool.
Agree.
They didn't mention it at the end of last season, did they? As like the fleet that was pursuing Osira? I don't think so.
I don't remember, but I couldn't say 100% with certainty that it was or wasn't.
I feel like Voyager was the one that was called out by name, and I don't think I don't know. But yeah, Eisenberg, hearing that was really cool. For sure.
Indeed.
I know this is a big jump ahead, but thank you, Patrick. Everyone's a winner on Haz's Karma barge.
Do you want a bag? Because there's more. Just her complete apathetic deadpan. She was the best extra in the whole episode.
Actually, she's someone I've not looked up, like the actor who portrayed her, but I want to now because that was brilliant. I love that. Okay. So we've got the on the 10C issue. She's too close to the book issue. Stay out of that. But then again, I'm going to say one of my favorite, like 50 times in this episode, because there's so much great stuff in here. Under his command or something like that. I love
Not
that.
just resourceful. There was another word, and I can't remember what it was. Anyway, she was, maybe he called her adept. I think he called her adept.
That might have been it. Yeah.
Someone in the chat will know. Chat will know. Help me.
Someone's already like scrubbing through the episode to get to that part. And,
yeah, which we appreciate, because if we were to do that on air, it would just be boring for you guys. So
absolutely. Creative might have been creative.
Yes, that could
sounds
be
familiar. Yeah,
creative works. I think that's right.
Yeah, I think so. But
let's see if there's a consensus. Get on it, people.
Reviewing an episode via crowdsourcing. I love it. That's very cool.
Yes, best way to do it.
Absolutely. Okay. Donnie Pearson, I do want to address this. My condolences to the loved ones of the VFX artist for Star Trek The Motion Picture, Douglas Trumbull. Yeah, definitely a huge loss. And yeah, I understand a new Federation starship named after him will debut in season 3 of Picard. Yeah, there's a screen cap or a shot of part of the set shared by the showrunner, Terry Matalas. And I'm never sure if I'm pronouncing his name right. I still haven't heard it out loud yet. But on the screen, it shows the USS Trumbull on a screen graphic. So that was a very nice little tribute for sure. So, yeah. VFX pioneer, worked on Blade Runner, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 2001. Like he's definitely a VFX pioneer, and a loss to Star Trek and the world of film for sure. Absolutely.
And I'm one of those people that loves TMP, so I appreciate the visuals and the visual effects. They're still, even to this day, I'm like, okay, so how did they do that?
Yeah.
So because it's all, it's practical effects. It's like, how did you do that?
It's one of those things, and I mentioned this on the podcast, Positively Trek, the episode that'll be coming out on Tuesday. I mentioned that a lot of the visual language that we got in the motion picture has kind of dictated how Star Trek went forward from there for many, many years, and still to this day, I think, has a huge influence on what Star Trek looks like and feels like. So, yeah, the motion picture, I love it in a way that like a lot of people don't, but some people do
Same.
for sure.
I don't
One of the
even I'm sorry, go ahead.
sorry. No, I was just going to say it was one of the first things. My mom actually brought home a rental of the VHS of the motion picture. And I remember the Klingon ships going past the screen and doing the spinny thing. And it had me. That was, I can pinpoint the moment I became a Trekkie. And it was right there because I was like, what is this? This is amazing.
Yeah, I was one of those kids who would sit through long science fiction movies. Like when I was 9, I watched the entirety of 2001: A Space Odyssey in one sitting. And my mom's like, "No, you're probably going to find this boring." And I'm like, "Try me." Did not find it boring. But yeah, I love TMP. I don't even fast forward that 5-minute scene of Scotty taking Kirk around in the shuttle to see the ship.
Which
I don't fast forward it.
no, and that scene in particular, Bruce Gibson mentioned. I hadn't known this, but apparently Douglas Trumbull basically directed that whole chunk.
Oh,
Like that was his to figure out and present.
my
So
heart. And it was done so well.
so beautiful. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. So back to the episode all in. Joaquin here with the win. Thank you. Vance called Burnham one of the most creative and adept officers in my service.
see, I
Thank you.
did remember Adept, and we also got, I think it was from Bavarius. We
Yeah.
also got creative. So yes,
Yeah,
we were both right. We did it,
definitely.
team. We did it. Thank you.
Excellent. So yeah, I love how Burnham doesn't have to circumvent the president's orders, but operate within them. And I do also love how Saru immediately just like, so, this is from your courier days? Oh, does the president and Admiral Vance know that we're going after Mr. Booker? That was great. He's so Spock like. I
Mhm.
like, but in a very different way. Not acting the same as Spock, but he is totally Spock to Burnham's Kirk
Mhm.
in with their own twist on it though. Like they're not carbon copies, obviously, but just that relationship they have there, it feels very similar to that.
It does. It's interesting too because she asks him if he thinks that she's emotionally compromised, and he's like,
Hmm.
"No, no. I think you'll do your job. It's what you do." She has never let emotions compromise her. She has
Hmm.
always gotten done what needs to be done because guess what, folks? That's what women do. We get it done regardless of how we're feeling and still have time to express how we're feeling. So there.
I will give you the floor for that one. Yes, absolutely. um, yeah, so they're headed to this planet with Haz's karma barge. I still want to know where. Oh, I love everything about this place. By the way, it's so seedy and so gross and whatever,
Mhm.
but
Dark, no windows because you don't want to know what time of day it is.
exactly,
Like a
yeah,
typical casino.
yeah. But Haz himself, I kind of love this guy. Like,
Charismatic up the yin yang. Oh my gosh.
yeah. And we were talking before we hit go live, his little sayings and stuff. This episode, and I'm not usually one who says that this is has to be done, but this episode you have to watch it with the subtitles on, at least on the
Mhm.
second watch, because his sayings are so amazing, and there's a bunch of them with great little references to past Star Trek in them, but there are also other ones that just have no like references to anything that we have any context for, that and they make zero sense to us. They don't have any meaning to us, but they're hilarious. Like
Mhm.
My favorite one, okay, one of my favorite ones, he says to Book at one point, "You got yourself a deal, but you jab a Brussels fly and I'll scoot some green bread. Clear?" And that's the one that Book says crystal too. I love that.
Just the weirdest things, and yet he says them in a way that you're like, "That means something." But we have no
Yeah.
context for it. But like, was that in a previous
Yeah.
Star Trek episode somewhere? It's got us all thinking. Just funny.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, did you catch the Lower Decks reference? That's what I want to know.
Maybe there was a lot that he said a lot of stuff.
I'm putting it out there into the comments before I did anybody catch the very specific Lower Decks reference to something we've seen in an episode of Lower Decks? I'm just gonna see if somebody brings it up in the comments before I talk about it. But the one of the ones oh, there we go. Yeah, TJ's on it. Oops.
Spider
Spider
Cow,
Cow.
right,
Yeah.
right,
I heard we had
right.
Starfleet guests, so I just had to scurry like a spider cow to welcome you.
I'd forgotten that. I was thinking that came later in the episode, but it didn't. Yeah,
Oh,
that Spider Cow.
oh
Big ol'
man,
spider.
okay. A lot of people caught that. So Donnie, yeah. So many people caught the spider cow. I love that. Yeah. And yeah, was it's true what the Elasians say, give a man a tour back and you are warm in the desert. I mean, it's it can anybody argue with that? No, of
I
course.
can't.
Yeah,
That
clearly.
that's these sayings come about from things that are just true.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man. And someone in the comments was saying about Has that they need to bring him back. Yeah, TJ. They do need to bring him back. He is excellent. Just so okay, we're going to jump all over this episode, but
That's fine. That's how we do it. That's how we
it's
do it.
true. I think one of my favorite Has moments is in the poker game when Book and Burnham are clearly colluding and sending all these signals. And if you look at Has, he totally knows what's going on. He's just looking back and forth between the two of them and laughing his head off. I love that. He's just like, what's she gonna do next? Oh, what's he gonna do? I love it.
Well, he's seen them do this before a
Yeah,
lot,
totally.
apparently. So he's just enjoying it. And then you've got the two ex-members of a German a cappella group, just glowering at the table. I'm sorry, that's a Pitch Perfect 2 reference for everybody out there. If you haven't seen it,
Nice.
you don't know. It's just I'm just like, what, why? So yeah, it was
Yeah.
yeah, it was one of those scenes where it's just like, how can those other two not pick up on what's going on? But
Yeah.
maybe they know nothing about I don't know if they know anything about how much they know about the game. Well, they were already there, so probably a lot, but they just don't know what to make of Michael and Book, so they're just like, "I'm so confused." And I think she was kind of distracting and confusing them by being stuff like, "Hmm, well, I'm all talk." Just
Yeah.
yeah.
How are things in the intimidation game? I think is
Mhm.
one of my favorite lines as well. That was great.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, the whole Burnham's whole performance in this uh was terrific. That was so much fun. I really enjoyed that. Basically the whole poker game was one of my favorite parts of this episode. So uh when I was talking about the parts of the episode I really liked, that is definitely one of them for me.
Mhm. I wasn't surprised by the outcome because I thought Michael
Mhm.
has prepared for this. Plus, when she said that she wanted to verify the quality of the isolinium, and I thought, well, she's probably going to put something on that.
Mm-hmm.
and just the way she was touching it. Now, here's the funny thing about that scene when she goes in to look at the isolinium. When you watch the scene the first time as it's happening, this little patch is in her right hand and she's putting it on the back of it on the right side with her right forefinger. When
Mm-hmm.
you see the recollection of it, it's on the opposite side. It's
I
on the left
thought
side.
so. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
I don't know why they did that, but there it is.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Maybe she
this
wasn't actually doing anything with her right hand, and that was a distraction.
yeah, but you don't ever see her touch it with her left hand in that first scene.
Hmm.
So, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, yeah, you immediately knew she was doing something there,
Oh, yeah.
and
She
Book even knew too. Like when she says, "I assume we're going to get a chance to examine the quality of the and Book's like, what are you up to?" So he knew
Yes, I'm
something was going on.
beginning he did, but I think that Book's judgment is compromised right now, and he
Mm-hmm.
is underestimating Michael.
Oh yeah.
Either that, or he absolutely knows that she put a tracker on them and they ditched it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That could
I
be
guess we'll
too.
have to wait till the next episode to find out, but we'll see.
No. Well, oh, thanks for reporting the spam bot. I just noticed that here, and they're blocked. Okay. Um, thank you. So yeah.
Spam.
Oh. uh, okay, let's jump back to before the poker game and some other stuff. We've got they need to raise some initial funds basically. Um, Oshikun and Burnham. And in addition to all the gaming tables and stuff, they have a fighting ring. And Owo is going to take on this guy. And I have to admit, the first time I watched this episode, until it all plays out at the end, I thought like a lot of those conversations were genuine, right? Where Burnham's like, no, you got to stop. This is too much. And she's like, I can do this. And Burnham, okay, one more. And then it gets to the third round and she bets all the money. And I was like, oh, no, they were just raising the odds till it was 45-1. Okay. Um, it is so much fun to watch it a second time. This episode is one that just really benefits from a second watch. It's so much fun watching it the second time and just like them play acting the total like I could do this. Just like okay, fine, but this is the last time and I love it. That was so much fun.
Yeah, well, I also think that not only was Owoshikun, driving the odds up, but she was also learning his moves and
Mhm.
learning how he fought. And so by the third round, when the odds are 45-1,
Yeah.
and the bell rings and she just crouches down on the ground and stares at him,
Mhm.
waiting for him to make a move. And then when she does, when he does make a move, she punches him in the man parts, and I
Mhm.
laughed my butt off.
Cuz it does not matter how you hit the mat just as long as you get
Mm-mm.
there.
Yep,
Yeah.
she throat punched him at one point. I'm a huge proponent of throat punching. I've said it many times. Love seeing it. So I just, I really appreciated that third round. And I think another thing that is really important here, and I think that a lot of people don't really think about the importance of it, is these two strong Black women
Mhm.
doing what needs to be done. And it's not really about a romantic interest, it's about saving the freaking galaxy.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's just really powerful for to
Yeah.
have that kind of representation.
Yeah, I really appreciated that for sure. And I've been seeing some voices online and stuff calling that out and bringing attention to that. And absolutely, yes, that's huge for sure. Um, my only thing, just because I'm just this is just how I am. I've never been a fan of like boxing or
Mm-mm, me
UFC
neither.
or anything like that. So the like human drama of them grifting these guys and then winning the money. I enjoyed that. The actual fighting, I'm like, it's a thing. Yeah, whatever. But it was pretty cool. And just also the fact that it's a Woshikun and we get a bit of a focus on her is great. But there's actually a scene later in the episode that I love
Oh, that's the
even more.
best one.
It's so good.
Best one. Best
Oh,
Woshikun moment.
there we go. She applied concentrated force to his neutral zone. Yeah. Speaking of lower decks references, very, very nice.
Yes.
Oh,
Mhm.
TJ mentioned it earlier too, so I should.
Yes, they're both. Except Patrick was more precise with the quote.
Yes.
Because
Very
it's
nice.
Patrick, and he has a mind that is just, can pick all of these things out of them in a second, kind of like you do, Dan. And then there's me, and I was like, there was something that one time about that thing, in that one show. That's my brain.
Patrick, we need to talk sometime because I think it would be a heck of a lot of fun. And in the spirit of good sportsmanship and stuff, I would love to go head to head with you in a trivia contest of some kind with regards to Star Trek, because I would fully appreciate getting beat by you, because some of the stuff that you pull out, I'm like, oh, brilliant, perfect. So I really think I think that would be a fun contest, and I would love to try to go up against you, but it's I'm in awe, good sir, is what I'm saying.
He is extremely knowledgeable, which is it's so fun every time he sees a new episode of Star Trek. He's messaging me with stuff about it, and so I'm just like, I did not pick up on that at all. Thank you.
Very nice.
And I will always credit people who give me information that I share on this show or any other. I will always say, this is what I heard from this person, because I'm not that kind of person that just takes credit for other people's work. Oh, Patrick's in. He is in for that head-to-head trivia.
See, that's the kind of sport. That's the kind of competition I like. Let's do that. Not beat each other up or something like that. That's but yeah. So I appreciated that whole part of the story, but yeah, just the UFC style stuff, I'm just like, not my bag. But
neither.
Yeah. So let's talk about that scene that I mentioned then, because while Book and Burnham and all of them are playing their poker, we get Owoshikun and Tarka watching, and this amazing scene where Owoshikun is just staring at Tarka and kind of throwing things out there and narrowing down exactly why Tarka is doing what he's doing. And he's not even responding. She's just looking at his face and seeing how he reacts, and narrows it down like, this is about someone you love, someone you lost, someone died, and he's just like clearly getting rattled by this until he finally is very visibly shaken and says, you need to go over there, you're boring me, or something like that, to try and get rid of her. But I love that scene, and she's so good in that, and I love that whole interplay. And man, yeah, there we go. That you put it much more succinctly than I could, Ricky. Oshikun is perfect in this episode. She deconstructed him and his motivations perfectly. Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, and the thing that, Dave, I haven't seen these people, but Dave has seen people on Twitter defending Tarka. And I was like, inadequate white man syndrome? Is that what we're doing here? And the funny thing is that Tarka says to Owoshikun, if you knew the weight of my burden, or something to that effect, you would understand. And I thought, child, there ain't no burden, there ain't no loss any bigger, any worse than what the entire crew of Discovery did to get here so that you are alive. So why don't you Bite me, Tarka.
I hope episode like 10 or 11 is just called Bite Me Tarka.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have another funny thing that Dave came up with while we were watching the second time. If anyone's a fan of the Sailor Moon anime, the original or later versions, there there is this sort of mirror universe called the Negaverse. And
Hmm.
and so Sailor Moon has a crescent moon on her forehead, and the crescent moon is like the moon, the bowl is filling up, so the points go upward.
Hmm.
And the Negaverse, they also have moons on their forehead, but their moons are black.
Oh.
And so, yes. So, oh no, excuse me. Her moon is the crescent is on the other side because the Negaverse is reversed. And so he's like, okay, so he's from the Negaverse. So what's his name going to be? Because the whole Negaverse thing, there were these 4-footmen who were named after ores like malachite and jadeite, etc. And so he's called Tarkite now. All right, that was a long
Huh.
way to go. Hope you came along for the ride. Go watch Sailor Moon.
I liked it. I liked it. I have to say, as someone who's never watched it, you brought me along perfectly, and I get it. Okay.
Okay,
Very
good.
cool.
Good.
Yeah, and with regards to Tarka, I'm sure there are going to be some interesting and complicated motivations that are
Oh, I'm
behind
sure.
what he's doing, but I think like ultimately he's got to be obviously in the wrong here, regardless of what happened, because well, he's so arrogant for one thing, and I say this with all respect to the actor because he's played so perfectly.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
I can't stand it when people, I don't know if they're just so divorced from reality that they can't separate a character and an actor. But like the backlash that the new, not the new Captain America, but the new Captain America in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the interim guy who's what is it? US agent, I think is his name now, but
Yes.
yeah, the backlash that the actor got because people hated his character, like that's just so ridiculous. And I just got to give so many props to the actor playing Tarka because his delivery of some of these lines is so good. Like, what was it? Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this, but you were right.
Yeah. Yeah, Sean Doyle is a gift and a treasure because I've seen him play a bad guy before in The
Mm-hmm.
Expanse.
Yeah,
Totally different performance.
absolutely.
He is so good. He is so good. And anyone that wants to mess with that young man who played a US agent, and I can't remember his first name to save my life. And last time I checked, no, give me a second because I want to make sure that I say this correctly and you guys know how I am. I don't remember anything. So I'm going to quit giving me ads for frickin' Uncharted. I'm gonna watch it eventually. Jeez. Okay, sorry about that. Phew, 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 phew. All right. Wow. All right. This is what I wanted to say. Yeah, Wyatt Russell.
Hmm.
That's Kurt Russell's son, so maybe you want to take a step back and not mess with him or his dad.
Whoops.
And he's
Yeah.
amazing. He is an amazing actor.
Oh
He
yeah.
has a very layered performance in
Yeah.
that series. It is impressive. And see, I don't recall seeing him in anything else before this. I had no idea who he was before this. Didn't know he
Hmm.
was Kurt Russell's son. And then to find that out later and just go, it was just kind
Hmm.
of, yeah, jaw dropping. So
Yeah.
I don't understand how we're still in that mentality in this day and age.
I don't
It
get
just
it.
blows my
Like,
mind.
yeah, that's like hating Louise Fletcher for Kai Wynn. Like,
Yeah,
Louise Fletcher is brilliant as Kai
she is
Wynn.
amazing. And
Yeah.
see, we've seen her as a bad guy before in One Flew Over the
Mhm.
Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh,
Completely
so
different
horrible.
performance as Nurse Ratched. I mean,
Mhm.
there's that's the beauty. It's, sometimes it's way more fun. Okay, it's always way more fun to be the bad guy because you get to do the things that the good guys can't do, and you get to have snarky lines and do all that stuff. But
Yeah.
it also takes talent to make that a layered performance, and Sean Doyle
Mhm.
is nailing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when like I said, when he was totally rattled by Owoshikun, like you can see how brilliant a performer he is there because he has this facade of being totally, nobody can approach my genius. Like, and to see that crack in that and that revelation of what's underneath just for a few seconds,
Mhm.
he's really bringing a lot to this performance, so I love
He
that.
is.
And shout out to everybody mentioning the just various examples of this in the comments. There's so many. Yeah, Joffrey in Game of Thrones, Rose
Mhm.
in The Last Jedi. I actually really liked her character, but a lot of people don't. The hatred that young lady got in social media just sickens me, the way she was treated,
Yeah,
for
nobody should fear for their life because of playing a role in Star Wars.
yeah, and that was for reasons beyond a character and a performance and stuff, which
Just
is
straight
bad
up
enough
racism and
already.
sexism.
Yeah, absolutely. John Delancey as Q or Colonel Frank Simmons. Yeah, definitely. I would throw Ronnie Cox in there as Jellicoe and as
Yes.
the Senator Kinsey he played in Stargate as well. Yeah.
Oh, and in RoboCop too.
Oh, of
He
course.
was
Yeah.
absolutely despicable in RoboCop.
Yeah. Ah, but yeah, that scene in this episode so great. Of course, as we alluded to, we know the outcome here. Book does win the pot and the isolinium that Burnham has planted a tracker on. And again, that scene at the end, I don't know what it is about this episode and scenes between Vance, the president, and Burnham, but those two scenes kind of bookending the episode, and we get another scene after that we'll talk about, but that scene where she is pretty upset with Burnham for finding a loophole in her orders. And, not only that, but even in the course of exploiting that loophole, not being able to uh, capture Book and Tarka and bring them in and all this stuff. Um, and when Burnham turns it around and says, "I knew I wasn't going to be able to win that. Book is a much better poker player than me. And knowing that, I planted a tracker on this, and here's their position." And the president's basically like, it's not often that people are able to surprise me. And that moment was terrific as well.
Yes. Well, the thing is that the reason that she went to the Karma Barge was to buy star charts for this area where
Mm-hmm.
species 10C was. So she had a valid reason to go there
Mm-hmm.
because you can't just get those star charts anywhere. They're only charted by certain species. And that actually ends up being helpful. She
Mm-hmm.
still got those star charts, and it gave them the location and gave them a visual of what's in that space, which is just a big silver jelly bean that seems to be fluctuating.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just like she did her job.
Mm-hmm.
She did
Absolutely.
her job and did even more. She went above and beyond. Two birds, one stone. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the takeaway from that scene basically, and how Burnham sums it up is, obviously I am very close to this situation. I have feelings for Book and I feel betrayed by him. But the personal stake that I have in this is not going to affect my performance as a Starfleet officer, and I will do my job and do what it takes to advance the cause of the, the orders that she's been given and stuff. And I love that. Like, and she brought the receipts, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
here's the proof. Like, yeah, I couldn't take them in because, I had no weapon and we had no authority there. And if the two of us tried to take them in, like, we would have been very quickly overwhelmed, and that wasn't going to happen. But this is what I did. And now we know where they are. I love that. That was
Mm-hmm.
terrific.
And
So,
because of that, we also find out what the DMA is.
yeah. So, another big tie to Star Trek history and lore and stuff, because, yeah, boronite. Apparently, this thing is a mining dredge, and it's taking boronite away. And I, I, I was like, I had a suspicion after watching this episode and hearing boronite, and Saru said it's involved in the creation of some of the most powerful substances known to science, or something like that.
Omega particle.
It's the Omega particle, which is apparently what powers this civilization that's hiding behind this somewhat Faraday cage type thing that
Mm-hmm.
encompasses a good chunk of a star system, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
well, they can't see what's inside, so they assume it's enough
yeah,
room for a star and 3 orbiting bodies.
yeah, something like that.
So, but I don't think this is Borg.
No,
And
I
I
don't
know a
think
lot
it's
of people are
Borg.
going there, but I do not think this is Borg.
Oh, interesting.
And because, everything it connects to that. I mean, it, the whole Omega particle, because that happened in Voyager, right? Right, Patrick? That's what you told me? Voyager?
Mhm.
Was that Voyager thing? Yeah, I haven't gotten to that part yet, sorry.
Yep.
Um, so yeah,
Late season 4 of Voyager, so I think you're
I'm
getting
almost there.
close.
I'm almost there. I'm almost there.
Yeah.
So yes, I was very I love connections to old Trek, and I love it when they do it
Mhm.
in this sort of fashion where it's not like, "Hey!" and it's more just like, "Hey."
Hey, those guys in the
Like,
back, you're paying attention, right? Huh?
yeah,
That's kind of what
"Hey."
they're doing. I like that.
Yep, just, "Hey."
Um, yeah, when you get to that episode, you'll understand why some people think it might be Borg related. I don't think it's Borg related at all.
I
I
don't
think
either.
it's just a civilization that's using this as a power source. But somebody pointed out, yeah, DJ Kitty Cat, consider if an ant tried to communicate with us. And that's kind of what I said towards the start of the season was, wouldn't that be cool if it was just a civilization that doesn't even consider what they're doing, as, like they're tromping through a forest and they have no idea that we're down there, kind of thing.
I said the same thing in the recording of, Discovery, What the Future Holds that we did earlier today. You know, they probably don't think we're even sentient. They
Hmm.
probably have no clue. This it's like if you see a swarm of ants,
Yeah.
and they're starting to interfere with your picnic, what are you going to do about that? You're going to smash them. So what do they think is going to happen when they destroy that dredge?
Yep, exactly.
I don't think we want to know the answer to that, but I would bet some money that we end up finding out
Yep.
because my personal feeling is they're not going to be able to stop them from destroying the DMA.
Yeah, I feel like that isolytic weapon is going to go off before
I
the
do too.
season's over. Like,
I do too.
I
I
don't
don't
see
want it to
them.
be that way.
Yeah, I don't see them stopping them and bringing that to a resolution and then making peaceful first contact. Like, that's not how this season's going to go. So, yeah. Thomas Hill, I want to highlight this comment because this is good. Did you see the 2 final cards that Burnham played? They had broken hearts and the 2 halves are in different directions. That, I think, is a symbol of the book and Burnham are going in different ways. I like that. I didn't catch that, and That's great.
Yeah, well, she did tell him that if he did this, if he made this move, that he was crossing a bridge that he may not be able to come back from.
I think he said that he would incinerate all of the bridges or something like that.
And
And
he says, "Does that include the ones between us?" And she says, "If you do this, Starfleet's going to do everything in their power to stop you, and I'm going to be one of the tools they use."
yeah, absolutely. That was heartbreaking. And so
It was.
yeah, very fitting that we see those cards a few seconds later. That makes a lot
Mm.
of sense. I like that being pointed out there. Oof.
Yes, well done.
Absolutely. Well, heavy stuff in this. And yeah, I feel like Book at some point is going to come around and see Tarka for what he is, because
I think he
Book's
already is a little bit.
he's starting to. One aspect I liked about this episode is I feel like Burnham had hopes for various parts of the mission, but had
Mm,
contingencies for every single one. So
exactly.
I think she was being absolutely honest when she told the president at the start of the episode, if I see Book, I can convince him to come back. And she hoped that that would be the case. And I think she was genuinely, I wouldn't say surprised, but she was disappointed that she wasn't able to do that. But she had contingencies in case she couldn't. So if that didn't work, they would try to win the Isolinium. And if that didn't work, which it didn't, she had the tracker on it. So I love the kind of, thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead, not assuming that everything is going to go to plan, but making contingencies for when and if it doesn't. That I thought was really good. And I kind of wonder if some of the president's words were echoing through her head a little bit when, early in the season we get the, you always go in assuming you're going to be able to succeed. And I wonder if part of that was, maybe I won't. So here's what I'm going to do to prove that ultimately I will succeed.
Yes, that's the thing. She has learned from her mistakes, and
Mm-hmm.
she has learned so much since that season premiere of season 1. I mean, just all of the experiences that she's had up to this point have prepared her for being prepared. So, yeah, go in. See, this is what I call being a realist. I'm always going to hope for the best, but absolutely be prepared for the worst.
You're Garrick.
Thank you.
That's Garrick's
Thank you. I
philosophy.
will take that. But that's the way I've always been. I'm like, yes, I hope this all goes according to plan, and I hope that it all comes off without a hitch. But if it doesn't, I'm also ready for whatever happens. So
Mm-hmm.
that's just how I play things. It's better to have and not need than need and not have. And so it's always good to have a plan B.
Definitely. Well, what we need and do not have yet is everyone's final opinions on this
No, no, no,
episode.
no. I have
Oh,
one more
oh,
thing to talk
oh
about.
no. So do I. And it might be the same thing because I just remembered something I forgot.
Go ahead. You first. I bet it's the same thing.
Is it Stamets and Culber?
It totally is.
Okay. Yes. I love that scene as well because yeah, we've got Culber not having a good time of it. And in the same way that Vance and Burnham are feeling guilt for what Tarka and Book have done, Culber's feeling that for Book as well, because as he says, he feels responsible for the mental health of everybody on the ship, including Book. To which Stamets says, that is a ridiculous expectation to put upon yourself. Come on, dude, let's take some time off as you've been ordered to or suggested to by Kovich, and let's go walk in some damn flowers because you need to settle the hell down.
It's so great, but I just love how frantic he is when Stamets walks in, and Stamets is like, the dot can do that. And he's like, yeah, but it needs some zhuzh. I know everybody in the chat is loving the zhuzh, and that's
Yeah.
now canon in Star Trek. And then he just gets so, understandably, but targeting the wrong thing, angry at the dot, saying, "What did I tell you?" over your porch. You know, it's just so great. And just him thinking that he could have controlled the outcome of what Book did. That's not
Mhm.
how therapy works, because you have to make the choices. If you're not making your own choices, then it's not authentic. You're not actually changing anything. So you can listen, you can help guide, but you can't force any patient into a certain frame of mind. You can't be responsible for their decisions,
Yeah.
because ultimately they're making their own decisions. But I do love how Stamets is the therapist for a couple of minutes and is just so patient and so kind and saying, "Look, we all have all been there. We're all a little bit crazy right now because I did this and this, and I handled the Zora situation terribly. And, it's just we make mistakes. And what you did, it
Mhm.
wasn't a mistake, but you need time for you." And after they leave hand in hand, which I love, the Dot comes back out and just starts cleaning again. I love that.
Well, I have to admit, at the start of that scene where he's spraying and wiping things, I in my brain, I literally said, "You do know the ship cleans itself, right?" And then Stamets says, "You do know the ship cleans up for us, right?" And I was like, "Oh, I was so close."
Mhm,
But yeah, that was a lovely scene. I love that. I love that Stamets' words worked, and we get
mhm.
that lovely moment at the end of them walking out hand in hand, like you said. Um, I felt so bad for the Dot as well. Oh,
The Dot was probably just like, "I get it. I'll just go over here till you leave."
yeah,
And the minute they're gone, that Dot's like, "Okay, I can go back to work."
yeah, definitely. The other thing we didn't talk about is Changeling that was cheating in
Yes.
the bar. And thank
Yes.
you for TJ bringing that up in the comments, because I did want to talk about that a little bit. Um, yeah, when Book sees this being disappear behind the pillar and come out as something else, he says, "Oh, it's a changeling." And I was like, "Okay, a changeling, but not like a changeling, right?"
Oh, a changeling
It
change.
was a changeling. Is a Dominion, like, for whatever the Dominion is now. I don't know, because that's what was going through my head after they capture this changeling and we see that, yeah, that looks Odo-ish, right?
Mhm.
I was like, okay, what 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 is the Dominion now? Like, oh, my brain started going through that, and I'm like, oh no, now I'm gonna wonder about this forever. But that was so cool to see a Odo type changeling. That was awesome.
Yeah, it makes you wonder because they called themselves the Founders. So, what is their actual species name? Have we ever found out?
Hmm.
Because
Yeah, I
yeah.
Founders is be the closest to anything official, because changeling they took on, they were called that in a derogatory manner by Solids, and
Mm.
they took the name as their own. So changeling could be a species name, but yeah, originally I don't know.
Yeah, hard to say.
And yeah, in the words of Matthew here, it became a friggin' dribble. It did indeed.
When that dribble just started rolling like this bat out of hell, it was just so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, what it was, because I just thought, well, what are they gonna Oh, Tribble.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, they're
Mm-hmm.
fast little suckers when they wanna be.
Apparently, at least changeling ones are. But that's
Well,
cool.
according to, that one short trek, they are pretty fast as well.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, any final thoughts for All In? Since I think we're now all in with everything in the show that we wanted to discuss. I can't think of
Yeah.
anything else.
And ratings, of course, we're
And
gonna ask for
ratings,
ratings.
yeah,
Yeah.
from the fine folks in the comments as well.
This was a weird episode, I'm not going to deny that. It improves upon a repeated watching,
It
so watching
does.
it once, Uh, Go back and watch it again, especially with the subtitles. You will enjoy it more. There are a lot of things in this episode to like, and yet the overall arcing feel of it is like, you guys should be doing something else right now. And that doesn't, it's just an impatience to, I thought we were going to get the, oh my gosh, how are they going to stop these guys? And they defied expectations, which I applaud them for doing. Actually, I applaud them for doing that. We got some great information that we needed, some revelations, some interactions that didn't go the way that we had hoped, and some great Awoshikan. How can we not love that? Those dimples. Oh my word. Those dimples. I've seen them before, but it's been a minute since we've seen her dimples. And I really just, the character work in this was just great.
Mhm.
And although it may not be my most favorite episode of Discovery ever, I wouldn't call it a bad episode either. It was just kind of weird, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing. So I'm going to give it, golly, I'm going to give it, one great big Armus, and just tack on an Armus that is getting prank called by the team at Lower Decks.
Nice. Yeah, I really enjoyed the episode. Weird is kind of a good way to put it. It's a good episode. Like, I
Mhm.
genuinely really enjoyed it. It's not my favorite of the season. That still has to go to the examples at this moment. I still just love that episode. But this was a very good episode. I love the character work in it. I love Awoshikun getting a bit more of a focus and some great scenes. Not just the fighting. Like, the fighting was fine, but like some great meaty scenes.
Mhm.
Not her kicking ass, but her being a thoughtful and perceptive character. Those kinds of moments I can really do with more of for a lot of the characters. And I'm not saying there's a shortage of those. There's great scenes like that for all of the characters, but the more the better. That was so great. um yeah, I'm gonna have to give it, I think I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5. Oh, Joanne, oh wow, Awoshikans, because that is one of my favorite nicknames now. And even just the look on Awoshikan's face when Burnham
It's
says
like,
that, she's like, okay.
really? I think it was like, "What?"
But it worked. It
Yep.
worked. So yeah, uh love the episode. Not my favorite, but uh, the progression that it gives to the story, I
Mhm.
think, is very important. And um, it was fun to see Book and Burnham working together, even though they were at odds.
Yeah.
Uh, I thought that was cool. So yeah.
Agreed.
Um, so yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. And of course, we'll be back next week with an episode that I don't think the title's been publicly released yet. So I have no idea what it is, but it is season 4, episode 9 of Discovery. And I'm sure we'll see some interesting progression on the story. But until then, Brandi, where can people find you online?
Well, as per usual, I get tired of saying all the things. So just find me on Twitter, Brandywine12, and you will see what I'm doing, because I will post podcast episodes of things that I do. I did recently do an episode of The Janeway where we talk about the episode Threshold, which is an episode I love, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Is it a good episode? No, that doesn't matter. I still love it. It is absolutely not safe for work, so please bear that in mind and do not listen to it without headphones or if completely alone.
Awesome. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Kertrats, Kertrats, and of course in the Positively Trek podcast with Bruce Gibson. And we have a new website for the podcast, and it's just www.positivelytrek.com. It'll take you right there. Yeah, trying something new with it. We've moved actually to a different media host, so our old positivelytrek.libsyn.com doesn't exist anymore, but it should still forward to the new one for a little while. So yeah, and of course the Positively Trek discussion group on Facebook. Just answer some questions, agree to the rules, and we'll let you right in. And we'll see you next week. So until then, live long and prosper. And I'm not ready for this. And you know what they say, give a man a tour back and you are warm in the desert. So, words to live by.